And there's this doctrine also. I want to address another doctrine that I often hear that says that if you divorce and remarry, it's a sin and you're committing adultery. And that's true. According to the Bible, marriage is for a lifetime. Matthew 5:32 says, "But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication." Notice it doesn't say adultery, it says fornication, which is during that betrothal period. If you realize that your betrothed was not actually pure, you have a right to put her away at that point. But that's the only exception. According to Matthew, it says, "Saving for the cause of fornication causeth her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery." Okay, so marriage is for a lifetime. You're not supposed to get divorced. That's why it's so important, as young people, to make that decision, right? The right decision, and don't jump into a marriage. Don't jump in on the wrong reasons, because you have to treat it as though it's going to be for a lifetime, and stick to that. And that, maybe you won't make as foolish of a decision at times, jump into something. And so that's the deterrent there. But however, once the deed has been done, let's say you do get divorced and remarried, I've heard people say you're committing continual adultery and that you should get divorced again, from that second marriage. They say that you should just leave that second spouse and break up that family and that marriage again. And I don't believe that to be true at all. I believe that once the deed has been done, there's grace. You've been forgiven, and you should stay within your current marriage because you don't compound sin upon sin, but rather embrace God's grace. Now, you shouldn't do it in the first place, right? As I mentioned, marriage is meant to be forever in the sight of God, but there is grace, and we don't divorce again to make the first one right. It just doesn't work that way. There's just, it's a messy situation. There will be consequences in those situations as well, especially if there's children. But, it's just grace ultimately. And so God not only had David and Bathsheba stay together once it was too late to go back, but he also blessed their union now that repentance had occurred. And David and Bathsheba are deeply blessed by having Solomon. And so that's, again, a proof text for that doctrine. God didn't say, "Look, David and Bathsheba, you're married now, but it's wrong. You need to separate." He actually blesses them and forgives them and gives them Solomon, who continues the line of Christ. And 2 Samuel 12:25 continues. "And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah because of the Lord." And so they have Solomon, and they name him actually Jedediah. That's Solomon's birth name, which is, it's his birth name, meaning beloved of the Lord. And Solomon is derived from the Hebrew root word shlomo. Later on, I guess they call him Solomon, which is associated with shalom, which means peace. And so Solomon is often interpreted as the man of peace. And unlike David's tenure as king, there will be peace during King Solomon's reign, which is why God allows him to build his temple. And so, but even that name, beloved of the Lord, Jedediah, this was a sign that, this union was blessed. Solomon wasn't going to be like bad fruit. He was blessed, and God obviously blessed King Solomon greatly.